All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Finest Sports Football Happy Hour. I'm Connor. I'm joined, as always, by Matt, Teddy, and Mike. What's going on, guys? How are you?
Great.
Hanging in there.
Hot damn.
Good. It seems like all of you guys are feeling pretty good right now. I'm not. I'm still recovering from Sunday. So some folks drink to celebrate. Some folks drink to forget. Just to start things off, I will say I'm drinking to forget a miserable performance by the Jets on Sunday. Tonight, I'm drinking Heady Topper. It is a pretty esteemed IPA.
Great beer.
Yeah, it's not bad. It was what fell off the truck this week. So
that's a pretty good 5-finger discount, I must say.
Hey, man, perks for a jerk. You know what I mean? All right, Teddy, what's in your glass, brother?
So this week I'm going all out fall. The high here was around like 56. I'm wearing a sweatshirt. Everything's coming around. So I am going with the Oktoberfest. This one I found, it's the Jack's Abbey Copper Legend. So it's a little bit darker than your typical Oktoberfest, which can be, I guess, occasionally can be on the paler side. I guess they kind of range, but this one's excellent. It's sort of got like an essence of being a copper ale, but still kind of bringing home that German undertone. So
Copper Legend is something I want to drink. That's a fun name.
Yeah, and the color scheme, like
yeah,
firing on all cylinders.
I'm drinking a fun beer this week. Spruce Tip IPA from a local brewery right here called Upslope, and they add spruce tips obviously into the IPA, and so it's kind of piney. It's actually like spruce tips. Depending on when you pick them, they can kind of taste like cantaloupe, like melon, and so you're getting a little bit of that too.
Really?
So it's like pine and cantaloupe, and it's like, I don't know, it's a pretty good wintry IPA. So I guess I'm anticipating colder weather, but it's a unique beer.
Matt, that's the one that's like really not far from you at all.
Well, I was going to say, right? One of you two guys, Connor.
Yeah, I definitely was there. I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
I couldn't remember which one, but
cool
maybe
spot.
Both of you. Yeah.
Connor and I bear a lot of resemblance, so
I always
mix this up too. Yeah.
He's so much more handsome. Oh God. All right, go. Diaz, what are you drinking, pal?
I am drinking a bourbon. Basil Hayden again, but since I always drink bourbon, and since we usually go through one or two drinks on the show, after that I'm gonna go to Stone. This is the Delicious IPA. Stone Brewery is probably my favorite and my go-to when it comes to IPAs. So it is colder out, which means that it's IPA season for me. So that's what I'll be sipping on tonight, boys.
Well, then if we're gonna shift on to like a what's on tap situation, my follow-up is another masterpiece from Southern Tier. It's the Harvest IPA, an autumn IPA, which I had not seen until this year, but I had one last week, and it is also excellent. And it sort of makes me see the IPA in like an autumn winter light, which I don't typically. I actually associate spring and summer.
It's like a malty IPA. Any kind of like spices in there?
Kind of down the center, more ton I thought it would be. But yeah, it's got a little more backbone than their like their typical one. I'm blanking on what the standard one is, but it has.
I'll keep my eyes peeled for it. That sounds very intriguing.
Yeah. Also, the color scheme on the label. Of
course. And the name. Oh, my God.
This matters. This matters.
Speaking of intrigue and excitement, up next, we've got the return of a very, very popular segment. It's Ted's Talk. Teddy, you want to take it away?
I do. So the cat's out of the bag.
We'll go to the next segment.
The cat's out of the bag a little bit with the prompt, but I kind of liked the setup anyway, where I'm going to give you guys the teams first. So we're going to start with that. And the first one will go to Mike Diaz. And then I will come back around and remind you of the prompt. Okay, your team number 11, and if my internet would decide to work, I would let you know what team falls 11th alphabetically. Detroit Lions.
Awesome. Love it.
Okay. Matt, you're going to be, 10, right behind them, the Denver Broncos, which I think you had last week. No, you just...
Connor ended up having
Connor had the Broncos.
Connor had the Broncos, okay. And then Connor, you're on 29, which is the Seattle Seahawks.
All right. This feels
All
good.
right.
Good teams.
So yeah, so you're sinking into your teams, and the prompt again is, and this is classic NFL. We always overreact week one, but sometimes it's not all hot air. State a week one hot take about your team. Is it an overreaction or genuine cause for concern? Timer 60 seconds. And here it goes. Wow. So today we're going to read briefly about the difference between the let, the const, and the var variable in JavaScript syntax, which was updated with the release of ES6 in 2015. To understand why let and const were introduced, we must first understand how var works and the concept of hoisting. That being said, here are the 5 questions we will cover in order. How does var work? What is hoisting? What is let and const? Why were let and const added in ES6? When should you use let and const? We'll address these in turn. 1. How does var work? Well, prior to ES6, var was the main way to declare variables. For example, var name equals Linda. One thing that made JavaScript confusing prior to ES6 was how it determines variables. Time's up. More on that on the JavaScript Focus podcast, which I host every Thursday at noon. All right.
Interesting. Double duty.
Don't do that. Don't look for it. Don't follow it. Okay, Connor, I'm going to put you on the spot here.
All right, can you tell me the prompt one more time?
You had the last 60 seconds to prepare.
The prompt.
I honestly just went to the Seahawks to see like what's actually happening here, but no, I feel
okay,
really
yeah,
sure.
I'll give you the 15 seconds and even do you the favor of dropping the team name in there. Okay. We always overreact week one, but sometimes it's not all hot air. State a week one hot take about the Seattle Seahawks, and is it an overreaction or cause for concern?
Okay, hot take about the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks are gonna run the table. Is it a hot take? I don't think so. I'm looking at the next week's game. They faced, or at least Carroll's faced Cam Newton plenty of times. This will be a second week with the Patriots. I see that as a win. I'm just looking down their schedule here. It looks pretty favorable. Cowboys had some injuries, and I don't think they look that good. Dolphins, Vikings, Cardinals. I don't know. I feel pretty favorably, especially out west there. I think the Seahawks are actually going to be in business. I really like how that team's looking, and I think Russell Wilson's going to be coming into his own as usual, playing. Oh man, who they got down the stretch? They got some easy games too. The Giants and the Jets are on their schedule. Yikes! It's not an overreaction. That's a hot take right there. They're gonna not be perfect, but they're definitely going to be probably in the driver's seat to win the division and go to the Super Bowl. That's all I got.
All right.
Boom.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like there's something to stand on there. The Seahawks looked really good. Their offense is a little bit more alive than it has been traditionally. And as you said, if their schedule is a bunch of cake games, then so it goes.
I buy that argument.
Cool.
Buy that for $1.
All right, Matt.
Yeah.
You ready to sandwich in here?
I think so.
Do you need the prompt again?
No, I got it.
Okay, good. And fire at when ready.
Okay. So out of all of the weeks in NFL history that you can make an overreaction, this is it. Because if you watch any game, you're like, this is like nothing I've ever seen before in the NFL. Teams weren't necessarily prepared. Defenses were like half of them were non-existent. So you can get kind of carried away with hot takes here. I think for the Broncos, what I'm hearing a lot out here in Colorado is that people are saying that this might be Vic Fangio's last year. Because he's not necessarily up to snuff. He made a critical mistake by not calling a timeout on that final drive. Derrick Henry got within the red zone, and the clock kept ticking. And then even though Gostkowski had missed a bunch of kicks, you had to assume they were going to score. You had to call a timeout so you can get Drew Lock the ball. And Fangio said, I was concentrated on calling the defense. So I wasn't really necessarily concerned about the offense. But guess what? You just spent a whole bunch of money on your offense, Drew Lock, your draft picks. That's going to be the future of this team, and so he's not necessarily the guy that's going to be able to bring them forward with that. So I don't think it's hot air.
So you're saying there's a leg to stand on that this could be Fangio's last year?
I think so.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Time will tell. Gostkowski did miss a lot of kicks.
He redeemed himself, though.
On a 31-yard chip shot at the end.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling so good about it, but yeah.
Speaking of kicks, not to cut into the segment, there were 24 missed field goals and PATs in week 1.
Yep.
24. Wow.
24 missed kicks in total.
Who knew the kickers needed the preseason games the most?
It was the lowest completion percentage or success rate in 20 years for kickers.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah.
Wow.
Matt?
All right. Mike, are you ready?
I was born ready.
All right, hit it.
Okay, so the Lions, hot take about them from week 1. I'm going to go with Adrian Peterson will be the lead back for the Detroit Lions for the course of 2020. I don't think that's an overreaction. I saw him run with purpose against a very good Chicago defense. Even though it's not Vic Fangio's Chicago defense, it is Chuck Pagano's defense, which is above average. Okay, DeAndre Swift, not an overreaction, will transition to a James White role in that offense, and he'll be looked to on passing downs, and he'll rack up more receptions than he will rushing yards. I think the fact that they had the trust to throw to him on a potential game winner just shows you how much they really like him in the offense, and especially as a pass catcher. I don't think the drop will discourage them from throwing to him. He's very talented. He's very fast. I think they're going to continue to grow him and make sure he gets his confidence back.
All right.
So you could be right about that, Mike.
You were 3 for 3. All of you overreacted and said that it wasn't an overreaction. And I feel like this is a tremendous segue into the same old NFL conversation that we're going to have here, because I don't know. But you think Peterson will be the guy, but they're going to grow Swift anyway? Because
I think you're going to see, like in the Patriots offense, like you had your runner, which would be the Sony Michel, and it's very similar things that we got going on in here in Detroit. So Smith will be the runner, and Swift is going to be the James White, where he may have 10 receptions a game, but 20 rushing yards, if that.
Okay.
Hopefully at least 50, 60, 70, 100. I mean, nothing to do with my fantasy team, but go ahead.
I'm also thrilled that you brought up the Lions, because that is the other most heart-wrenching thing that happened this week.
Oh, God. Especially to Mitch Trubisky. I mean,
I know.
If there's a quarterback to lose to, and especially you let him throw 3 touchdown passes in the fourth quarter, like, Jesus F. Christ. Come on.
It was like, wasn't sort of the monkey on Patricia's back was to sort of beat the Bears, and like he did, except for terrible, like the fourth quarter, just like fallout. The
Lions lost so many games like that last year. Yeah. So many games.
I actually like to turn that game on because it was one of the close ones toward the end, and like had the pleasure of watching Mitch Trubisky look really good, and then Swift just dropped that pass. Yeah. Like it's
unfortunate.
That's like the second worst person to be this weekend besides Gostkowski, I think.
Look, maybe the Lions are going to do really well. Hawkinson looked really good. Marvin Jones looked really good. Adrian Peterson looked good. Swift looked good at times. Okay, you have to understand that Kenny Golladay was not on the field, and Jamie Collins was ejected in the first quarter for some bullshit head bump against the referee.
That was bizarre.
So, it was, and the NFL noticed. He's not getting fined. He's not getting suspended. So it was stupid. Yeah. So we'll see. Lions will be better week 2.
Okay, I guess that's a wrap on the return of Ted's Talk. Maddie, you want to take us into 1st and 10 here?
Sure. I'd love to. All right. 10 news stories from the week that was, and that will be in 10 minutes. I will ask each of you a prompt at the end of each news item, and we'll get through it together as a team. Number 1, Saints wide receiver Michael Thomas is expected to miss several weeks with a high ankle sprain that he sustained against the Bucs on Sunday. They travel to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders, their opening game in that stadium on Monday night. After that, they're back home for the Packers, and they take on the Lions and Chargers, two decent teams. Thomas had only 3 catches in that game, and the Saints still won. Mike, how much does this hurt the Saints' chances if Michael Thomas has to miss 3 or 4 games?
I think it hurts their chances greatly. The reason the Saints did so well last year without Drew Brees is because you had Michael Thomas on the field, and Teddy Bridgewater is a very accurate passer. But without Michael Thomas on the field, you just have to game plan for Emmanuel Sanders, who is 33, 34 years old. Jared Cook did very well. And let's give a lot of credit to Todd Bowles. He shut down that offense very well. So without Thomas, it's going to be difficult without him on the field.
Yeah. So staying in that game, Ted, this one's for you. Lost in all that Tom Brady hullabaloo was the fact that Ronald Jones, your Ronald Jones, not only put together a good game, but he looked like a bona fide starter. Like he looked like the real deal when he was running. 17 carries for 66 yards. That may not sound like a lot, but compare that to Leonard Fournette's 5 yards on 5 carries and LaShawn McCoy's no yards on no carries. Ted, did you see enough out of Ronald Jones to advocate for him being the lead back, even with Fournette and McCoy in town?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot too besides the stats and the confidence to keep him in the game. He was able to make a little something. The Saints defense, I think, is better than people give it credit for. There's a lot of unclinking the clanks this week. And if you threw a touchdown on that, it would be a perfectly suitable fantasy game. And that's really all I care about.
There you go. George Kittle, the San Francisco 49ers tight end, obviously left week 1 against the Cardinals early. Now Richard Sherman, their corner, has been put on IR, short-term IR. That all compounds some serious injuries for the 49ers with most of their wide receivers. They just signed Mohamed Sanu, but he's just coming in basically blind now. Their upcoming schedule appears to be a cakewalk with trips to the Meadowlands against the Jets and Giants. They'll stay in West Virginia in between those 2 games. Connor, I don't know how much of the 49ers game you saw, but you definitely watched the Jets. You may have saw the Giants. Any chance that the 49ers drop 1 or dare we say 2 of these games?
If they're going to drop one of them, it might be against the Giants. I don't know how they're going to come through the Jets game if they get banged up at all, even more banged up than they already are. But the Jets are a suck-ass team, so I don't see that. I don't see that being a problem for them. But the Giants actually, I'm not that down on them. I thought the Steelers played well. I thought Big Ben played well in that game, and the Giants don't look like a complete mess. Conversely, the Jets are really owning that that title. So yeah, no, I think that if they could definitely face a challenge in that Giants game. So maybe one of the 2 they might drop, but definitely not against the Jets.
Seems fair. I will cheerfully talk about the Packers later. But the biggest story out of that game to me was the Vikings and just how far that defense has fallen out of form. We've talked about it a lot on the show, but actually seeing it on the field was a little bit shocking. No pass rush whatsoever. I think they got 2 hurries on Aaron Rodgers, and their corners were just eaten alive. Devontae Adams set a Packers record that stood for 76 years. Mike, can the Vikings defense turn this around in time before it becomes a major liability for that team?
I think they can, but you're probably not going to really see it turn around until mid-October. Danielle Hunter was not on the field, so there's your pass rush. The interior of their defensive line, even though the Packers really didn't run for much against them, it's Linval Joseph isn't there anymore, and he was such a stalwart on that defensive line for such a long time. And Matt, you alluded to this either last week or the week before. Their secondary is entirely made out of rookies except for Harrison Smith, essentially. So they're going to struggle in a division where you have a lot of very talented pass catchers.
So we're going to talk about New Year, same fill in the blank later, but I'm going to jump the gun here and say that Phillip Rivers is one of those guys. In a disappointing loss to the Jaguars on Sunday, Phillip Rivers completed 78% of his passes, but threw 2 ridiculously boneheaded, just game-crushing interceptions. Marlon Mack got hurt, but they figured out how to run it, and Gardner Minshew had a good day. But Rivers is going to be the key to that team going forward. Teddy, can the Colts make the playoffs if Rivers plays like he did? And do you expect him to improve any after that opening week performance?
I think all teams will improve, including the Colts, just because they'll have that little bit more time to build some chemistry. But I am not as high on the Colts as other people were. I'm not sure that this Phillip Rivers is that much of an upgrade over Jacoby Brissett. I expect the Colts to be competitive and frisky, but at best like a 9-7 sneak in the playoffs kind of team.
I think you're right. The perception of the Colts may have been a little bit overblown. Bengals kicker Randy Bullock missed a crushing 31-yard kick against the Chargers to tie it. Joe Burrow's opening game. It would have been such a great story. We talked a little bit about how kickers sucked last week. Now I want Connor, you to decide who's the biggest GOAT here. Is it Randy Bullock missing that kick, or is it DeAndre Swift dropping the for sure game-winning touchdown against the Bears?
Well, when we say GOAT, we're not talking about greatest.
We're talking about the bad one.
With this question, yeah, the bad one. I'm going to take the pressure off of DeAndre because he's on my fantasy team, and I think he's going to bounce back in a big way. I'm going to put it on the kicker, just because it's easy. It's low-hanging fruit. I don't know, it's tough. It's a tie here. It really is. For me,
both suck. It's a 31-yard kick.
That's a layup for any kicker, even a college guy. But I mean, Swift, it was here. You know what I mean? So
Yep. Mike, some boneheaded moves by coaches as well in week one. I mentioned the Vic Fangio letting the time run off the clock. You posted earlier on social media about Mike McCarthy foregoing a field goal down 3 to go for it on 4th and 3. They didn't get it. The other one I'll mention is that Matt Rule didn't give the ball to Christian McCaffrey on 4th and 1 when they needed to have it late in the game against the Raiders. Gave it to the fullback instead, who hadn't touched the ball all game. Which of those three is the least excusable to you?
Least excusable? I think it's Matt. Well, it's Mike McCarthy. It's Mike McCarthy. Like you just look, in a tight game like that, you're down 3 points. Take the fucking points. All right. There's 11 minutes to go at that time, and it's just a no-brainer. Kick the points, kick the field goal, tie the game. It's 0-0.
Mike McCarthy knows better, or should know better.
He took a year off to learn from his mistakes, and
right.
Clearly he didn't.
So there were some wild wide receiver accomplishments this week, or at least from that position. Darius Slayton now has 10 touchdowns since week 5 of last year. That's the most of any wide receiver. Nobody saw that coming from Darius Slayton. Both DeAndre Hopkins and Devontae Adams had 14 catches. Like I mentioned, Adams, that's a record breaker for the Packers. Hopkins is on a new team. That's crazy. And then the Falcons had 3 receivers go over 100 yards. So, Ted, which of those accomplishments is the most impressive to you? The Falcons, 3 over 100, Hopkins, Adams, or Darius Slayton showing up?
I'm going to give it to the Falcons because we know that Adams and Hopkins are great players. I think Slayton is a little bit of a product of circumstance. Not to take anything away from him, I was actually very impressed with the way he played against the Steelers. He was sort of not the lone bright spot, but it's certainly a bright spot for the Giants against a very good Steelers defense. 3 over 100 means you have adequate receivers, or very solid receivers, to excellent in the case of like Julio Jones, and a very good quarterback and a good scheme, and the right kind of game play, I guess, too, because I think the Falcons had to come from behind a little bit.
Yeah, being down 3 touchdowns really helps.
And fire a lot. But it does mean that like it's not the Julio Jones 250 yards on 21 catches kind of game. It meant that other people were getting open. Matt Ryan knows how to find them. And that just sort of bodes well because it could come at you from anywhere. They're all capable of doing it. So that's the one I'm going to give the nod to.
Yep. Connor, the Big Ten announced it's going to play 8 games in 8 weeks this year, starting next month. That means it'll be eligible for the college football playoff. Does this give the Big Ten some kind of advantage over other conferences, maybe playing a game or 2 less, limited competition? And are you bummed that Notre Dame has to play in the ACC and wasn't invited to the Big Ten?
They were invited to the Big Ten. Actually, Jack Swarbeck was talking at length about the schools that he got calls from and conferences that he got calls from. And naturally, they gravitate towards the ACC because they have an agreement with them. I don't think they have an advantage. And I also think they're full of shit. They thought they were going to be like leading the charge on this idea of we're going to have this great image of being the first conference to just cancel our season and everything. They look fucking foolish. So forget the Big Ten. And if I were the rest of the schools, I'd say you don't have an entire body of work, and I don't think you should be allowed into the college football playoff. So see you, Big Ten. Fuck you.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Last question here. Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, Calvin Johnson, all made the very big list for the 2021 Hall of Fame. That's their first year eligibility. Also, Justin Tuck and Wes Welker eligible.
Roddy White as well.
Roddy White. My question to everyone here: how old does this make you feel? Because we know these players. They are our age, basically.
Yeah, we grew up with them. They were, like these are the guys that we love to watch playing, and they're going to hold a special place in my heart. I know Calvin Johnson will go down as one of the best receivers of all time in my mind. Peyton Manning, the same thing. It makes me feel old because now there are guys coming into the league that have been born in 1994,
2002.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 2000.
Yeah, 94.
I'm even behind. Like that's 25. Math.
It makes me feel like go ahead, man.
No, go ahead, Connor.
It just makes me feel like a fossil because I remember their college careers.
Yeah, right.
I was watching Megatron play at Georgia Tech against Notre Dame and just absolutely destroying them. And then Justin Tuck obviously is one of my favorite players ever at Notre Dame. So just brutal. Wow.
How is Peyton Manning eligible and Tom Brady's still starting for the Bucs?
Crazy.
Like,
oh man,
come on.
So Manning, Woodson, and Megatron, they're locks, right?
Oh
I think
yeah,
so.
Those three guys.
Yeah, for sure.
And Roddy White, of course.
Oh, definitely not. I mean, just being honest. I know it's a joke, but yeah.
It's an honor to be nominated for him.
Exactly. 14. He's one of the 14 first ballot. So I think that's really cool.
All right. That'll do it for 1st and 10. Let's move on.
All right. We're getting into the game plan here. So last week's winner, I think Matt got on the board. Am I wrong with that? Or
it was a pity win. It was a pity win.
Yeah. All right. So we threw him a bone because he was crying about bias. Anyway, so first prompt. Now this one's like this is super easy, but I want you to just try and use restraint to not choose the Jets as like you're just the ultimate the answer. I mean, you'll get points regardless. But New Year, same blank. New Year, same blank. Last week's winner, Matt. Why don't you take it away here, pal?
I got a couple options. You
got 30 seconds, so let's go.
New Year, same Mike McCarthy. It's the guy I know best. The offense looked exactly the fucking same as in Green Bay. What are you talking about that you studied in a bunker with other coaches for an entire year? It looked exactly the same. Compare that to like a Shanahan or like the Packers' current offense. Did anybody see like Matt LaFleur's offense? Like it's just absolutely insane. And the transition from year one to year two, they're just doing so many different things. Mike McCarthy's offense is hand the ball off to Zeke Elliott and then run a bunch of guys downfield. The only difference is they doesn't have Aaron Rodgers to bail him out this year, and that's why they lost that game. It's going to be a really long year for Mike McCarthy. I hate to say it. I was actually kind of rooting for him, but it just looks so similar to what I had seen from him.
Diaz.
New Year, same Browns. Okay. You guys know I've said a lot of shit about the Browns in the offseason, and it starts from the top down. Okay. They thought Kevin Stefanski was going to come in there. Who the fuck is Kevin Stefanski? Okay. It's the same Browns. They have the same people that they had the year before last year. They had the same people that they had the year before, sans Odell Beckham Jr. But what did he do? 10 targets for 3 receptions and 22 yards, which is absolute horse shit. Okay. The coaching staff, you can have all the coaches that you want. Okay. You can bring in all the talent that you want. Austin Hooper, by the way, you made the highest paid tight end. What do you have? 35 yards on 2 receptions. David Njoku stole the day at tight end with a touchdown, 50 plus yards. New year, same Browns. They're shit. They always will be shit. They're a garbage franchise. And no, I am not picking them to win a single game this year.
Holy shit.
Wow. Mike coming in hot. Now for the guy who didn't get a chance to talk during the tie break last week, Teddy.
What an honor. New year, same embedded cast system. I'm going to take Mike's idea and extrapolate on it. Like, it's the same exact year, like playoff. It's going to be the same playoffs this year. The Patriots, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Packers, the Saints, and the Seahawks lock them in. They all look excellent. The Jets, the Browns, the Lions, they all find ways to lose and just are embarrassing in day in, day out. You can just tell they don't come ready to play. They don't show any spark on week one. It's just going to keep happening throughout the season. I don't know why we go through this every year. Thank God Tom Brady's not on the Patriots, because I would literally write the same playoffs as last year.
Teddy, that's such a good point. I was thinking that all this weekend. I think it's worse because of the weird off season this year. Yeah. I think it's amplified. Usually you have one or two teams that jettison up. But this year, I don't think we're even going to have that.
Yeah. I can't believe how solid I feel about all six of the teams I listed, 3 on each conference. I will be flabbergasted if any one of them doesn't make the playoff.
Yeah.
Wow, you guys both had 30 seconds. I didn't know we were getting an additional 15.
Come on, I just want
okay.
to a good point.
Okay, so for that, I'm going to give Diaz the point because he kept his mouth shut after the prompt, or after his time, but also because I did his points and talking about David Njoku just throwing up a hell of a game there after they gave Austin Hooper buku bucks. All right, this is a wonderful prompt and I can't wait. It's like foreshadowing for what I'm going to say later, which is just going to be miserable. But are the Jets secretly tanking? Diaz, take it away.
I'm going to say yes. Okay. Their best wide receiver, by the way, he's in Carolina and he went for over 100 yards. Their best defender, he had a sack and a bunch of tackles and did great in man coverage against Julio Jones for Seattle. Okay, they traded away those guys. Well, they didn't trade away Robbie Anderson, but they traded away Jamal Adams. They got 2 first-round picks. Okay, Adam Gase should not have been fucking retained. The whole team knows it. They hate him. The entire media knows it. The entire NFL knows that Adam Gase should not be a head coach in the NFL, shouldn't even be a coordinator. The guy should probably be in an insane asylum, let's be honest, but they are tanking. They're wasting talent. Okay. You have Le'Veon Bell, whatever happened there, that's fine. Okay. But Sam Darnold, he's coming into the prime of his career and you're just wasting away to try and build new talent and do a reset. It's not good.
Okay. Teddy.
I'm going no. The Jets are just that bad. And I think that they're trying, but they're not very good at it. And the crutch of my argument is that this is the year you have to see what Darnold can do. Last year got messed up with his illness, and then they were kind of too far gone for the playoffs by the time he actually got to play some meaningful football. But you have to decide on the 5th-year option basically at the end of the offseason. You have to know whether or not he can be the guy. You have to give him every opportunity he can get this year. I'm disappointed there's not more around them and they couldn't keep these star players that Diaz mentioned, kind of fled or got traded. But you have to commit at least for Darnold.
This is beautiful. I'm going to split the difference. The Jets are not tanking, but we also got to cut them some slack. We got to give them a little bit of a break. They went to Buffalo, which everybody says is the de facto division champs. Right. That's a really tough game. And Buffalo got out to a really hot start. The Jets started to make a comeback once they got their bearings. If Chris Herndon doesn't have that horrific fumble, maybe it's a totally different outcome. The end of the final score was only 10 points. It wasn't like a horrific outing. Jamison Crowder finished in the top 10 of fantasy wide receivers this year. So they do have some playmakers. I know Le'Veon Bell's now on IR. Chris Herndon is still a talented player. Brashad Perriman can still play. Their offensive line got better. Sam Darnold showed a little bit of improvement. And the defense fought a little bit. And they still have Greg Williams coordinating. The biggest thing about tanking is that you need everybody to buy in. You need the coaches to buy in on tanking. And Adam Gase knows if they go 3-13, he's done. So he's not buying into that. And I think Greg Williams is so competitive that he's not going to buy into that. And the players are so young that they need to prove that that they're actual pros. So they're not going to buy into that. Everybody has something to prove on that team, so they're not going to tank at all.
Okay, so I love the points that that Matt and Teddy made. I think the Jets are and aren't tanking. I think that this is the first GM that has a chance to be a hero for this team because he needs to have a pair. If he doesn't, he'll just kowtow and do whatever the Johnsons want him to do. But he can actually just, I mean, if I were him, I think I'd be licking, my lips right now because Le'Veon Bell is out. He's got Frank Gore starting, and then Josh Adams, who's a practice squad running back, behind him. So you have a fossil and then a guy who's totally unproven and probably not up to snuff, even though I love Josh Adams, Notre Dame kid. But the rest of the team is not tanking. The game plan is to win games. They just found a way to make the Buffalo Bills look outstanding, but the Bills came out and they played a dog shit game. Josh Adams missed one of the most wide open touchdowns I have ever seen to what was it, John Brown, just wide uncovered in the end zone. And then they had a touchdown that was just literally the amount of blown up coverages on the Jets defense. And I really I give it to them for trying to do everything they could to stay in the game, and they kept fighting. And Greg Williams, I would try to retain him if I were the GM, but everything else needs to go. So I think they are. Yeah, they are tanking, but they aren't tanking. So I'm hoping that the GM truly is just like, oh, geez, we'll get him next time. And I really have, but I think he's, and if he's the GM that I really hope he is, I hope he just lets this thing go up in flames, looks for offers for Le'Veon Bell as soon as possible, anything that he can get to try and get some semblance of return on anything, even Sam Darnold. I hope he makes that move. Okay. Next prompt. Can Joe Burrow continue his good start? We'll start with Matt. No, I'm sorry. We're going to start with Teddy. I apologize.
Ha! Well, I'm going to take Matt's idea. Yes. Yes, but he'll be hot and cold. I think what we will get out of Joe Burrow are more impressive head turner games from the rookie than we get from your average rookie. I think that he'll have a few that are just monster because I see potential there. And as I've said in weeks past, like I get nervous every time I hear people talk about him or I see him play. You're like, this guy is the real deal. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be an uphill battle for him this year. The team's not going to win that many games. I just don't think they have all of the pieces in place. And at the end, what really matters is like the way he plays in year two. Because as we've seen from these quarterbacks, they can flash as rookies. No one knows anything about them. And they're just sort of improving, but then they get a little bit up in their heads and it can either accelerate a la Mahomes and Jackson, or they can come back to earth like Baker Mayfield. And you can make the argument that Darnold too kind of took a step back in year two. So I really want to punt on this, but I think that he'll have some flashes.
All right, Matt.
No, he can't build on that this year. Obviously, Joe Burrow is he's shown enough. He's going to be a pro in this league for a long time. And the question really can he build on it this year? Can he get the Bengals to a point where they win 7 or 8 games? And I don't think so. You look at the defenses in that division. They're going to have to play Pittsburgh twice. They're going to have to play Baltimore twice. And Cleveland kind of is built to play a rookie quarterback. They blitz a lot. They have a good defensive line and pretty good players in the secondary. So that might be 6 games where he really struggles. And the Chargers are a pretty good defense, and he struggled against them, only 13 points. He missed some throws. He's going to improve this year, obviously. But I wouldn't expect anything from Joe Burrow this year. And you shouldn't, because his horizon is a couple years away, and you should be patient with him.
I'm going to agree with some of the things you said, Matt, but I'm going to disagree. I think he is going to continue. We've talked about the Chargers a lot. They have one of the best defenses that, on paper at least, that we've seen in a long time. Their secondary is absolutely stacked. Their defensive line is just absolutely amazing, and they've improved at the linebacker position through the offseason. So that's week 1 of his first NFL start. He goes up against one of a top 10 defense in the NFL, and it's a close game. He lost by 3 points, had the chance to potentially win the game too. And that touchdown run that he made, I mean, Yes, it was wide open. It was a design run, everything like that. He looked good enough against a great defense for the Bengals to build on something going forward. Especially like that's his first game action. There was no preseason game. So let's call that preseason game 1.
Yeah,
right?
but he's not going to be able to duplicate that. Like, he's not a running quarterback. He's not going to be able to duplicate that.
He's not.
And that was their only touchdown, right? So, and he missed some wide open throws. So, and you
but like I said, preseason game 1. Let's see where he is in October.
Didn't he have that narrow miss though with what was it, AJ Green? I thought that was like so I mean I don't know. I actually I'm kind of high on Joe after, especially facing the Chargers in week 1. So Diaz, I'm going to give you that one, pal. Right. So Ron Rivera and football teams start to the season. All right. Can the Washington football team, I can't believe I'm saying that, can they win the NFC East? And you know what? We're going to go in reverse order than what we just did. So Diaz, Matt, Teddy. All right, take it away, Mike.
I'm going to say yes. That front 7 and what they did to the Eagles, yes, the Eagles had a lot of injuries along the offensive line, but they still have a Hall of Famer in Jason Peters at left tackle. Jason Kelce is one of the best centers, okay? And they came back. They were down 17-0 going into the half, and they came back and fought. 8 sacks against Carson Wentz, who is also, by the way, a mobile quarterback, right? Chase Young looked really good. Ryan Kerrigan looked absolutely amazing. Like, this defense, and I've talked about this weeks back, this is the type of thing where you kind of rally behind a coach. You rally behind, Chuck Pagano, the Colts, right? Like that situation, Bruce Arians kind of took over and whatever. The players are kind of rallying. It's a dumpster fire over there in Washington with everything that's going on. The players are rallying behind this. All the offensive lines we saw, right? On Monday Night Football, the New York Giants get absolutely decimated in the run game. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers were filling those gaps like a hot knife through butter. So with what the football team can do on the defensive line, I think that's going to wreak havoc in the East. And if Dwayne Haskins plays smart football, I think they have a shot.
Just for the sake of being contrarian, I'm going to say no. I still think Dallas is better. I think that it's a wash with the Giants, and I do think the Eagles are better. The Eagles were missing 3 of their starting offensive linemen and Miles Sanders. And so their top running back. And they went up, and maybe it's the first week. It's a weird week. They just didn't, the momentum shifted so quickly the other way. I think it was much more of an indictment of the Eagles than it was a booster or a parade for the Redskins. An advocacy for the Redskins. Yeah, 8 sacks and 15. They're not going to get that. 15 knockdowns. They're not going to get that against every team. They're going to get that against a team that's missing 3 of their starting offensive linemen. So I put that all on the Eagles, and I need to see the Redskins do that, or the football team do that against a team that has like a decent offensive line before I'm ready to crown them head of the division.
I'm glad I get to be the tiebreaker here. No, this is an overreaction.
Simple.
And care to elaborate? Nope. All right. So I'm actually going to give Matt the point on that one. So since we had for the first question we had Diaz with the point, then we had a tie with Teddy and Matt for the second point, and then Matt finishes up with the point. Matt, 2 weeks in a row here with the W. You got 15 seconds. Please try not to say anything nauseating.
I don't have anything to say except for, Aaron Rodgers is on pace for an MVP season. Nothing happened to Aaron Rodgers. That's how he was kind of playing. He just got a little bit more consistent in this game. But that's how he's looked every single year.
And that wraps up Matt's time. So great.
MVP, Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, Mike, we're going into third and short, and hopefully there's no Packers talk here. Let's why don't you take it away, pal?
All right. So first off, I'm all in on Aaron Rodgers MVP for 2020. He's going to eat up that NFC North. But anyway, this is third and short. Okay, this is a segment.
Why?
because I like to upset you, Connor.
Thank you.
So third and short, this is a segment dedicated specifically and entirely towards Thursday night football. And this week we have the Battle in Ohio Part 1. Okay, we got the Browns taking on the young Bengals. Okay, so let's start with a little bit of the tail of the tape. Okay, so we're going to start off with quarterbacks. And Connor, I'm going to throw the first one to you. Okay, so you got Joe Burrow versus Baker Mayfield. Who you taking?
I'm gonna take Burrow.
Do it.
Yep. So he's got it's kind of like seeing a pitcher for the first time in baseball. There's some things that you can game plan for, and there's some things that you can. And I maybe we've seen enough tape from Baker where teams really aren't getting surprised by him anymore. So I actually think Burrow hung in against the Chargers. So I like him. I like him here.
Absolutely. All right. Teddy, these are two teams you know very well. So let's talk about running backs. Nick Chubb versus Joe Mixon. Who you taking?
I am going to roll with the Cleveland running game, but because of the Bengals run defense. I think that both were a little disappointing last week, but both like running attacks, but I'm gonna roll with like the Chubb. And can I throw in Hunt, or is that
of course.
taboo? I like that combination. I think they're talented. They didn't do a whole lot, but they played really good competition in the Ravens. So I'm going to roll with the Browns running game.
All right, very good. Matt, some big name wide receivers here. Odell Beckham or AJ Green?
Oh, fuck. It's so tricky. If you just look at production in week one, it's AJ Green. And Odell Beckham is like one of the most talented wide receivers in the league, but he just doesn't produce on this team. And so I have to go with AJ Green. It's insane. I have to go against Odell. Odell Beckham had 9 targets and 2 catches. So whether that's Odell on a horrendous drop on a drive on a 3rd and 2 that could have changed the whole game right before halftime. He has a shitty attitude. He has a shitty quarterback. AJ Green is like this. This might be a fully healthy year for him. And he was the leading receiver on the Bengals after basically not playing for the last 3 years. So I think I'm gonna go with AJ Green. It sounds crazy.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. All right, now for a guy who knows a lot about tight ends, Connor, who you taking, Austin Hooper or CJ Uzuma?
I'm not gonna take any of the Browns. Teddy actually had the strongest argument as far as their running game, because I like the depth of their running attack versus, Joe Mixon was definitely a tough one last week. But the tight end, I'll take Uzoma. I just think that the Bengals are in a better position, and Hooper got shown up in the worst way last week.
Yeah, well, we all saw that happening. And Ted, going back to you. Okay, well, yeah, that's why we didn't pay him, honestly. All right, so Ted, we're talking defenses right now. Yep. Okay, we're talking about the Bengals, who held the Chargers to 16 points, or the Browns, who gave up 38 to the Ravens.
Yep, and this is gonna dovetail very well into my forthcoming fantasy analysis. Still, give me the Browns. The Ravens are an exceptional team that knows them really well and know how to like push their buttons, but they held the Ravens running attack in check. And that is something that no team did over 16 games last year. And so I think it was Lamar Jackson had, 45 yards. The whole team had 111. Like, that is a victory against the Ravens. Granted, yes, they gave up 38 points, but the game kind of spiraled out of control very quickly. It didn't ever look good for the Browns, but they definitely gave up. And not that that's a good thing or like a glowing recommendation for going with a team's defense, but I think that they have more potential. They've got more stars. the Chargers are still being run by Tyrod Taylor, and that means they're going to score about 16 points a game.
Yeah, fair. All right. Now to a guy who knows a lot about kicking. Matt, we had some changes for both of these teams.
Yep.
The Browns released Seibert, who the Bengals then picked up, and the Browns themselves signed Cody Parkey. So out of these kickers, who you trust more?
So the Bengals signed Austin Seibert, but they're sticking with Randy Bullock, who missed like the game-winning kick for this week. Austin Seibert's on the practice squad. I mean, this is a brutal trio of kickers. Cody Parkey missed I think he missed 4 kicks in a game last year. And Cody Parkey is the doink guy, the double doink for Chicago.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going with Randy Bullock, who's actually had success in this league. Cody Parkey has not. It's Bullock, even though he missed a horrendous kick last week.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. All right. Now I gotta say, once again, you guys hit the nail on the head. I pre-did these things, and yeah, we're all on the same page, which I like to hear.
Whoa.
Anyway, let's talk
That's
some
2 weeks
fantasy.
in a row. That's pretty
That
impressive.
is 2 weeks in a row.
Hey,
Hey,
6 for 6 twice in a row.
Yeah. Hey, I guess we spent a lot of time with each other, you know? So,
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about fantasy. All right. And for an inside look on the Browns, Matt, who are you keeping a close eye on this week?
All right, three things to look at here. I know we just trashed this guy, Austin Hooper, because David Njoku went to IR, right? And because Odell Beckham caught 2 passes last week, and because Jarvis Landry is banged up, there's nobody besides Austin Hooper at this point to catch the ball, and they're going to have more opportunities. Austin Hooper is against the Browns or against the Bengals than they did against the Ravens. Austin Hooper he's still a good player. I know he's not like what everybody expects him to be, but he's still a really good player. And the Browns are going to be able to play like at their pace. They kind of had to play catch up against the Ravens. I think that plays better into using your tight end more efficiently. I also want to bring up the Browns defense as Teddy mentioned. There are pieces that are going to work against Joe Burrow, starting on their D-line with Myles Garrett and Sheldon Richardson, Larry Ogunjobi. They're going to be able to get a lot of pressure, and the Bengals' offensive line is still definitely rebuilding. And then the secondary, Denzel Ward and Andrew Sendejo. So like a couple of ball hawks back there. Last week, Joe Woods, their defensive coordinator for the Browns, blitzed about as much as anybody. And blitzing Lamar Jackson is really fucking stupid. And they gave up 38 points. But it will be smart against Joe Burrow. And so like maybe if you're going to start the Browns defense, this is probably the week to do it. And then the last guy I'll mention is Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt, look, if you drafted Nick Chubb, and I tried to tell everybody who watches this thing, do not draft Nick Chubb. Definitely don't draft him in round 2. Hopefully you didn't do that because Kareem Hunt had more carries, he had more catches. It was basically an even split. But Kareem Hunt got a contract extension, so like they're committed to it. The reason why I say you might want to start Kareem Hunt is because you may have been able to draft him in like the 7th or 8th round, and he may not be in your starting lineup. And what week 1 showed us is that like it's going to be a timeshare, and he's going to be able to get his carries and his catches. So you might as well plug him in, especially if you're dealing with injuries, like a lot of teams are right now. So Austin Hooper, Kareem Hunt, and the Browns defense. That's what I'm going with.
Love it. I actually think Austin Hooper has a chance to actually do something this week. I mean, we saw Hunter Henry of the Chargers have a fairly good game. Bengals are definitely weak, okay, in the down the center of the field with their linebackers and their safeties, not very good in coverage. So I think this is the week that Austin Hooper gets back on track. Anyway, we got the Bengals. So Ted, who are some guys to watch or avoid? What do you got?
I hear your 3, Matt, and I will lower you to a 2. I have 2 points. One up, one down. Up, I'm going AJ Green. He had 9 targets in week 1. It maybe only amounted to 51 yards, but it proves that he was A, on the field, which is a big step forward, and B, that Burrow can find him, and he's trying to get the ball to him. So, like, at the end of the day, trust the most talented person on your offense to produce. His day will come. I think that AJ Green will have several big games this year. I already alluded that I think Burrow will have a couple monster games. It could happen against the Browns. So I like AJ Green, and especially where similar to the Kareem Hunt thing, you might have got Green deep in your draft. Now's the time to run comfortably with like a wide receiver too, with like some very high upside from Green. On the flip side is exactly the Cleveland Browns point. Their defense. I'm not loving Joe Mixon this week. I think that the fact that their defense did hold the Ravens in check as much as they did means that they have a system to do that. It's another divisional opponent, someone they know really well. Maybe they're scheming for them a little bit harder than they are for other teams. So I expect them to have a similar ability to stop the run. And I think that Mixon's going to run into some trouble there. He may still, like, I don't bench him, but I'm just saying approach it with caution. And it has everything to do with just, I think that the Browns have a better run defense than people think.
So wait, Teddy, would you start, say, Jonathan Taylor over Joe Mixon this weekend?
Ooh,
That's a good one.
Who are the Colts playing?
Oh, Christ. Oh, man. Hold on a second. The Colts.
Because if it's a favorable matchup, yes.
Yeah, no, it's one of the questions that I was just really losing sleep over. So they're playing the Vikings.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
if you have the luxury to be able to sit one of those guys, but like I would be surprised if your third running back is Joe Mixon, you're still in like a really good spot.
You're still good.
Yeah, it's not about. If you have both of them, you're in a great spot. But yeah, if it's literally the choice between those two, then go for it. But please review your wide receivers first.
Sure.
All right. So we got fantasy matchups out of the way. So let's make some money. All right. And I'm going to refer to my friend Connor, who is just absolute madman when it comes to spending that cash.
All right. So I want to say you're welcome to fans of the Jets or fans of money, as I tried to warn you that any pick I make for the Jets, you definitely have to take the oppo. And also, I think we did pretty well on our Thursday night game last week. I mean, we got the under. Okay. The Texans, even though they kind of threatened a little bit, they did not beat that spread. But outright, we all had the Chiefs in that game. So the Chiefs in the under was the key. This week, it's definitely an intriguing line, and the line is moving a bit. So right now, the Bengals, at least, regardless of what source you look at, they're a touchdown underdog. So the Browns, I mean, they're getting at least 6.5 points. However, as they say on the open lines right now, it's pushing 8 to even 9. So I like the Bengals here. I take the points. I take the Bengals. Money line, the aggregate right now, or the cumulative, it's like plus 235 for the Bengals and minus 250 for the Browns. I don't know. I'm not liking the money line this week, but the under, or the over under, I should say, is at like 43. So I probably would I'd probably take the under again, just because the Bengals and the Browns were kind of dog shit on offense last week as far as point production. So I don't know how you come out and feel confident that they're going to go over 43 points. So that's my thought. I don't know about you guys, but that's where I'm at so far.
I like that. So Connor, just definitively, you are picking who?
I'm going to take the Bengals this week.
And take the
Plus,
Bengals.
What do you on plus what? 6.5 you giving yourself, or?
Yeah, I'll take dude, I might even take, I'll take Bengals with the 6 actually.
The 6, okay.
Yeah. But even I might take the Bengals outright in this one, frankly.
Yeah. We'll go to Matt. Who you got, Matt?
I'm going to go with the Bengals as well. I think all the pressure is on the Browns. It's on Baker Mayfield to show that he's not a wash, playing against Joe Burrow, who's like the next great quarterback. And it's on Cody Parkey. I mean, we saw how much Stephen Gostkowski missing kicks affected the Titans' chances. They still won, but barely. The Broncos probably should have won that game. I think all the pressure is on Cleveland. And Cincinnati's going to feel like maybe we should have won that week 1 game. And I think on paper they're evenly matched. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati.
Okay. Ted, what do you like?
The thing I don't like about this game is that one of them is going to win. And that means that the Steelers don't get a 2-game advantage on the division opponents early on. I have the Browns winning a slim one, but I'm going with 21-18, which means 39. So I am also on the under, but I am taking the Bengals +6. I'm staying away from like the money line, take a pick, because I do think the Browns are going to win, but I'm not confident on it. I'm not going to put the 250 down or whatever I need to win $100.
But also in this matchup, we're talking about when we refer to Baker Mayfield, or actually the stuff that I've been reading, not us, but what I've been reading is that they're referring to Baker Mayfield like he's some wily veteran as opposed to Joe Burrow. It's his second or third year. I can't even remember, but it's not like he's like some guy that has like the NFL figured out. And frankly, I feel like the NFL has him figured out. So I don't know if like really he has like such great advantage over Joe Burrow in this.
I really want Mayfield to have a vintage Mayfield game. If you can even call it vintage from 2 years ago. But like I want some of that like excitement. I just want one of these quarterbacks to hit from that draft.
Mayfield was pretty exciting to watch in that first year. I mean, you saw it that first game when he came in on a Thursday night game against I can't even remember who they were playing. It was the Jets. Yeah. They hit the Philly or the Clevey, whatever they want to freaking call it over there. Yeah, that touchdown. He just had the whole city going. But ultimately, I'm taking the Bengals here. I just think that the Browns are dog shit. I mean, that's exactly what they are. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it any more than anyone has to. But so most of us are on the Bengals. Teddy is taking the Browns. We are all 3-0, including our primetime matchups, except for Matt, who is 2-1. He missed on the Broncos Titans game. Very close game. But we're going to have some intrigue this week with Teddy picking the Browns, and then we'll have another game on Monday night. So with that, let's start talking about week 2. And Connor, I'm going to hand it off to you.
All right. We're getting into our team scouting here, our beat reporters, I should say. I always like to start it off with something familiar, something favorable. And I just get a good feeling when I think about memories of Pittsburgh. So Teddy, why don't you take it away with the Pittsburgh Steelers here?
Boy, oh boy. Monday Night Football, week 1, early game. So I don't even need to like stay up extra late. This was best case scenario. Everything went off without a hitch. With the exception of one injury, which we'll get to. But it was, first of all, the Steelers defense was freaking for real. Like it looked like it was like week 9 for him. I have not seen Bud Dupree play like that in his career. And he was one person that I had gotten used to leaving the Steelers because he's on his 5th year of his rookie contract. And he's going to demand a pretty high price tag, especially if he keeps playing like this. And there's just no space in the cap. So like, I had to get used to him not being there. He made it very hard for me because he wrecked the game. He was the whole reason that ball fluttered up in the air for the Cam Hayward interception. And he was around the ball the whole time. And like, he was the reason that Saquon Barkley couldn't get anything. Like, so I heard that Saquon Barkley had 15 carries for 6 yards, which ties a record for the least productive 15 carries in the Super Bowl era. This is
big stat. Big stat.
Wow. Granted, he had like a pretty decent job, did a good job in the screen game. Like I think he had 5 for 53 or something like that at some point. So like he still produced. Saquon Barkley is awesome, but I am so high on the Steelers defense right now to maybe assuage my concern about Dupree moving on. Alex Highsmith looks like a total beast to come in. He's the rookie edge rusher that they kind of brought in. I can't believe the way Benny Snell played. All of the rumors are true. He came in lighter and faster, just like James Conner and Le'Veon Bell before him. Like everyone likes to lament that the Steelers have this pipeline of wide receivers that's unbelievable. Check out the running backs recently. Like, I don't know. The Giants might be trash and I might be totally overreacting, but I'm feeling really, really, really good. Let's go. Broncos.
So okay, all right. So Teddy, your forecast for week 2 for the Steelers. What's the
I like them to win another similar style game. I think that they'll put up a few more points, and I think the Broncos will be a little bit more productive. Jerry Jeudy, incidentally, did look pretty good. All in all, I think that they have some talent there. I don't know. Will Sutton be back for this week? Do we know yet?
He might be.
So
Okay.
He's
So
not on
nobody
IR,
knows.
right? Well, he's not on IR, right?
He's not on IR.
Yeah, so he might be.
Okay. So we might.
so anything's possible.
Yeah.
So I know you touched on him before in Snell, who actually, kid from, I think he played at Kentucky. But so is he one of your like week 2 like fantasy players to watch for your team, or is it somebody else? Like, and also as an aside, like just a quick side, what is it, Deontay Johnson, or who is the guy that had a bunch of key drops and didn't look
Johnson.
as good as like and I was kind of concerned with him because of the fact that he had multiple opportunities and he created separation, did the right things, but couldn't finish. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that Johnson, I'm going to chalk it up to week 1 jitters. He also kind of eased into it as the game went on. When you drop a punt, like your heart just sinks and it's hard to get it out of your head. And I think he wasn't ready for the punts. Maybe he didn't do it enough in practice, so there's the extra pressure of players running at him. But he did come into his own. He had a pretty good game. So I'm still high on Johnson. I still like him to roll as a wide receiver 2 throughout the year. I'm starting him in my roster. Snell, I'm getting another week on the bench. I'm bummed because Jeff got him for free, and I should have just stashed him. But I also don't know that I feel higher about him than I do about the other rookies that I have on my bench, because I do think that there's still an avenue where Connor's still the guy. But in another alternate reality on a team where without Tomlin, maybe you'd see a lot more Snell this week. But if you have him, stash him, definitely roster him. But I would proceed with caution. I think Connor will be back.
Okay. Let's go south. Diaz, Falcons, go.
All right. So week 1, we played a really good team in the Seattle Seahawks. And in the first half, we kept it really competitive, but then we were forced kind of out of our game plan. In the first half, Todd Gurley looked great. I mean, he was over 5 yards a carry in the first half, scored a touchdown, looked really good. We actually struggled in the passing game. But this is not the same Falcons team that we saw last year. And I am in a much better place heading into week 2 than I was in week 2 of last year after getting decimated by the Minnesota Vikings, Matt Ryan having 3 interceptions. We looked like a completely different team. By the way, held Chris Carson to 23 yards. Our run defense was phenomenal in my mind against a really good run-first offense in the Seattle Seahawks. We looked really good. We shot the gaps really well, and we got 3 sacks on Russell Wilson, which is no easy task. By the way, we had 7 sacks in the first half of all of 2019, so we're halfway there in one game. And now heading into the second week, we're going to go up against the Dallas Cowboys, who are a little weak on the interior of their defense. So I expect Todd Gurley to have a really good game running the football. I think we take a lot of things that Sean McVay did with the LA Rams in week 1 on Sunday Night Football. I think we run it down their throats, and play action is going to be really huge in week 2. Falcons were the first team in NFL history to have 3 wide receivers catch 9 passes and go for over 100 yards. I think that is a testament to who Russell Gage is as a player. This is his 3rd year in the league. He was a special teams player at LSU, and he came in and he has just learned from Mohamed Sanu and Julio Jones over the course of these last 2 seasons, and he's coming in. He's put in a lot of work. Our defense is back. I know we didn't show it. We did not recover after a 4th and 5. Why the fuck are you going for it on 4th and 5, Seattle? Fuck you for that. Like, if that was Madden, play by the fair rules. I get it. It's the NFL. Also, to that point, Isaiah Oliver gave up a touchdown on a 4th and 5 to DK Metcalf. Why is he in single coverage with no safety over top of DK Metcalf? That's a bad defensive play call by Raheem Morris. But anyway, we're moving on. Okay, so I think the Falcons are actually going to do a pretty good job in the run game. Dan Quinn has actually done a fantastic job against Mike McCarthy and the Green Bay Packers. Matt, I'm sure you can attest to that. But
it's been a wash. It's been 50-50, I would say.
Yeah, fair. But I like the Falcons this week. I like them to rebound. Our defense is a lot better than I thought. And by the way, our offensive line, which was our heel in 2019, we gave up 50 sacks. no sacks were actually credited to the offensive line the first week, despite we had 2 sacks. One was on a rollout by Matt Ryan, and the other was an uncovered blitz by safety Jamal Adams. Our offensive line in the run game and the pass game was absolutely phenomenal, and it blew me out of the water because our offensive line normally sucks. We're looking pretty good. So week 2, fantasy guys, I want to focus on Todd Gurley against the Dallas Cowboys defense. And I think really Julio Jones is going to steal the show from a wide receiver standpoint. And, Matt Ryan threw for 450 yards in a losing effort against the Seattle Seahawks. So I like those guys. I think Ezekiel Elliott could be one to surprise people in having a really off game for Ezekiel Elliott. The Falcons looked really good in run defense, and Deion Jones is back. He's healthy. He's one of the fastest linebackers in the league and really good in coverage. So watch out for Ezekiel Elliott this year. I know I'm saying that as a fanboy, but I'm also a student of the game. So,
all right, we swing it back up north to Wisconsin. Maddie, take it away, pal.
I really do want to take week 1 with a grain of salt because that wasn't like the normal Minnesota Vikings that you see out there. I mean, Aaron Rodgers getting pressured twice in Minnesota, that just doesn't happen. Like, they're so young, and they had no pass rush. Danielle Hunter was down. So I do want to take week 1 with a grain of salt. That said, Matt LaFleur's offense, it's clearly taken a jump this year. The amount of horizontal movement, not only from the running backs and wide receivers in the middle of play, but from the linemen. It's just they're doing some things like counters and traps and like multiple guys alternating in the backfield. They're doing some things that I've never seen like NFL teams do before. Certainly not the Packers. And it's creating the situation where defensive linemen and linebackers are confused. They're just frozen. So no matter what, as long as the running back or the wide receiver, whoever gets the ball, can turn the corner, he picks up 5 yards. This is all Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, Mike Shanahan. This is all that kind of stuff. But it's interesting to see Matt LaFleur's take on it, and then to see what happens when you have a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, who can take advantage of all that confusion when all those defenders are stuck in their place, and then you have Aaron Rodgers just kind of like ripping apart the Vikings secondary. It's just easy. Like he didn't miss a single throw the entire day. And so like, I don't think any game is going to be easier than this one, to be honest with you. And I think it starts to go uphill this week against the Lions, because the Lions always play the Packers really tough. And I honestly think that this game could go either way. I mean, the Lions dominated that game against the Bears and just kind of fell apart in the fourth quarter in classic Lions fashion. I think they'll be motivated by the fact that the Packers beat them twice last year and didn't lead in regulation in either game. They won on a last-second field goal in both games. The Lions always seem to get pressure on Aaron Rodgers and get him off his mark. And so we'll see if that second year of Matt LaFleur's offense can kind of create enough confusion to allow Rodgers to have some time, like to generate some comfort for him, which would be exciting. I think the Packers should be favored in this one. They're playing in Lambeau. The Lions win if they can control time of possession. The Packers had over 40 minutes of possession against the Vikings, which is just absolutely insane. But the Lions could do it. They could at least do better than the Vikings did if they can make Aaron Rodgers uncomfortable, get him off the spot, and if they can set the edge on those runs that the Packers were so fond of in that first game. So from a fantasy perspective, I kind of have two things to say. Neither are positive for the Packers. The first one is, if you're looking for a boom guy out of this game, it's Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson ran for 93 yards or something on 14 carries last week against the Bears, which was surprising to me. And the Vikings ran at will against Green Bay. And maybe Kenny Clark, their nose tackle, they just paid a bunch of money to. He might not play this week with a groin injury. Adrian Peterson has always dominated the Packers. I can't believe that we're here in 2020 and he might dominate the Packers again. And the Lions they're going to want to ride the hot hand. I mean, especially after the DeAndre Swift drop. I think they're going to go with what they know. And Adrian Peterson knows how to beat the Packers. So if you have him, he might be on your bench. I would probably start him this week. And then the second thing is that people might be wanting to jump on Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Alan Lazard this week, but I would just hold off on that. Both of them had 4 catches. Valdes-Scantling had a touchdown. I can't remember. Oh, Lazard did have a touchdown. So they both had a touchdown. Valdes-Scantling's big issue last year was drops, and he dropped 2 just horrendous fucking passes. One on like a 3rd and 10 in a really critical moment of the game early, and then one like a 50-yard bomb that would have been a walk-in touchdown. Actually, the first one probably would have been a walk-in touchdown too, because he's so fast. And Alan Lazard, like he's a much better player, much more consistent. But I think they're going to hammer Devontae Adams again this week against a banged-up Lions secondary. And so, like, even if either of these guys, is consistent this week, you just don't know what the volume is going to be. You know that Devontae Adams is going to get 17 targets this year, or 17 targets this week, and then they're also trying to incorporate the running backs and the tight ends. So I just wouldn't break the bank on either of those secondary wide receivers just yet until one of them emerges.
I'd like to ask you a question about the Packers.
Yes.
From like the real NFL perspective.
Okay.
I too was impressed. I mean, approaching it even with like the full awareness that they were 13-3 last year. They were a good team. They still kind of impressed me against what could be a decent Vikings team that didn't really show up, but maybe the Packers are just a better team. So I'm like, okay, Packers, but they did let the Vikings hang. Can the Packers defense keep a team under 20 points if they need to?
So that's the thing, is last year was the first year where the defense actually showed up and was able to make stops. It never happened in the McCarthy era ever, or the Dom Capers era. The second quarter was really critical because it was 7-3 going into the second quarter. Then the Packers go for it on 4th and goal from the 1-yard line, don't get it. And Mike Pettin, defensive coordinator, sends a cornerback blitz, and Jair Alexander sacks Kirk Cousins in the end zone. That's 7-5. Next series, the Packers hold them. Packers go down, kick a field goal, so it's 8-7. Then Jair Alexander gets an interception in that second quarter, and Packers score right before the half.
Okay.
And they end up going up like 15 points in that half, after the game being really close. So I think the reason I was also a little bit concerned about how quick the Vikings could score, because they had like 2-minute drives compared to the Packers 8-minute drives. They were both scoring touchdowns. I think it was more a product just of the game flow. And the Packers were trying to keep everything in front of them. And Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen are good enough that they can kind of pick apart that at moments. I mean, the bottom line is they still won by almost double digits. The game was always in control for Green Bay. I think this week will be a much better test for them, and then we'll test that theory. We'll see how good the Packers defense is this week. Last point is that, like, people would say it was a soft 13-3 last year. Like, all of you guys know, it's tough to win one game in the NFL. I don't think there's any such thing as a fucking soft 13-3. If you win 13 games, you're a really good team. That's just my opinion.
Well, I can't show you a soft 13, that's for sure.
As long as it gets you unsettled, I'm going to say soft 13-3. So, but Matt, would you agree that Adam Thielen got that touchdown in garbage time and it was totally immaterial to the outcome of the game?
Even without that, I would have beaten you, Connor. So don't worry.
It doesn't matter. I'm just looking ahead as to like the bullshit, like inflated points that some people have on their team. Their players are getting. Anyway, okay, best for last, right? We're talking about the Jets. I'm gonna make this short and sweet. Week 1 breakdown. Dog shit. Terrible. Made what's the God, I don't even remember his name. Josh Allen. Made him look like vintage Brett Favre, aside from the fact that Josh Allen did everything he could to look like the Jets or Minnesota Vikings Brett Favre. There's not many positives aside from the fact that, I mean, you're not going to have to deal with Adam Gase and Le'Veon Bell fallouts now, because Le'Veon Bell's on the IR for, or not IR, but well, yeah, he's got to miss at least 3 games,
IR.
right? He's
minimal 3 weeks.
Yeah. So, but anyway, running backs looking real interesting. I feel really terribly for Josh Adams, who is going to get hit a lot because apparently Mekhi Becton is also banged up, and a guy who is probably the one bright spot on the offense, Jamison Crowder, just the consummate professional, just did what he's supposed to do. He's banged up as well. So looking ahead to week 2 against the Niners, who suffered a loss that they didn't anticipate, I expect pain for the Jets. That's my forecast. And but if you're going to look at a fantasy player, I actually liked Frank Gore's burst better than Le'Veon Bell's in that game. I don't know if anybody saw that, but yeah, that dude's a fossil, and he came out and just put a little bit of he had some jam, as hockey fans would recognize. He had a little jam in him for an old dude, and I think he's got a decent step. And I actually don't think Josh Adams is incompetent as an RB2. I just think they're super thin and ill prepared. So yeah, I mean, personal like week 2 fantasy guy to look out for, I guess, would be Frank Gore. Stay away from Chris Herndon. I don't know if everything is just clicking in between the ears for that dude, man. I just he's got a lot of talent. He's just not putting it together. So yeah, if you're going to look at fantasy players to look out for, probably the Niners, their whole team. Maybe focus on them. So yeah,
Frank Gore will be out for revenge against the team that let him go 35 years ago.
Yeah, I don't read into that too much because I feel like he's super long in the tooth, and he was like, what team can I go to?
He's played on half the teams in the league.
Yeah. Who will still pay me money to do what I do? That'll be the Jets for sure. Yep. They'll pay me dumb money.
If Frank Gore plays another 2 seasons, there is a possibility that he could end up playing with his son, who is a freshman in college. Possibility.
Yo, but frankly though, I don't. He was not a problem for the Jets last week. Like he was.
He
was actually a pleasure to watch. On a team. Actually, it wasn't a pleasure to watch. Nothing was.
What college did Frank Gore go to, Connor?
We don't like to talk about it just because it's just. I don't like to speak ill of anybody because if you want to mention that school, that's kind of like a negative thing about a human being. All right, so gentlemen, anything we want to talk about before we get out of here tonight? And we don't have Hard Knocks to discuss. I think Teddy's got some points he wants to make here.
Yeah. First, I want to apologize. I totally didn't see the other 2 points in my personal team breakdown about like looking ahead to week 2 and fantasy players. So I'll just throw in one nugget is I think that this week confirmed that the Steelers tight end group is like not something you want to touch, even though you want Eric Ebron to have the big bust out year. No, it's not happening. Like it's just never going to happen. On the flip side, I would like to look back on week 1 one more time in the same exact matchup and say the Giants, and this was brought up earlier, didn't look like a flaming trash bag. I thought that they really showed up, and I expected the Steelers to win, and it had everything to do with the fact that like they suffocated Saquon Barkley and just like didn't let them get anything going on offense at all, which is what you might expect from a team that actually hits in the preseason and has like a top 3 defense in the league, and it showed. So, but there were a few things I liked. The offensive line, not so much, but I mean, Saquon still can produce no matter how good the matchup is. And the defense, Jabril Peppers showed up, and he's like one of those names that I know, and I know they got him in that trade. And I liked what I saw on tape from him, is in particular in the return game, which is ridiculous, but like he was still involved in defense. And when they went through like, oh, these are the players that are here, like was it Leonard Williams is on the defensive line. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that fact. And then like I mentioned, like Jabril Peppers, like oh, there's players I know, like there are these guys that have some pedigree behind them, and they sort of played like it. So like I want to just say, I think the Giants look okay. I think Daniel Jones is our best year 2 quarterback still. I'm going to hold on to that belief. I think Darius Slayton is a true star, and the rest of the guys just sort of support that because they have trouble staying on the field besides Saquon. So I'm just wanting like 1 vote of confidence for the Giants.
People in New York media, or I guess New York radio, Like Giants fans were calling in and comparing the Giants to the Jets and saying they were a dumpster fire. And I couldn't disagree more. The look from the Giants in that game was a team that was not as good as the Steelers, but making positive strides and actually like showing up in that game and making it competitive. I felt positively about the Giants in that game, and I'm not a Giants fan and I don't care for them at all. But I mean, the Jets gave you no hope, and the Giants, I feel it's just completely like worlds apart, honestly. Which I feel like for most of my life, worlds apart. But yeah, I'm not down on the Giants at all. Actually, like
that was a game well into the second half, and then like there was like that big moment when Daniel Jones, I think, fumbled like as they were making a some kind of push towards the end zone.
Threw the interception.
He threw the interception.
Cameron Hayward.
But yeah, I mean that was a game
It wasn't even his fault. Like that was just good defense. Like that. But that was a
bad offensive line.
And and as you mentioned before, Tay, like the Steelers defense is really fucking good. They're really good. And the Steelers offense has playmakers. So like, was anybody expecting the Giants to win that game? No. So like, let's just lower your expectations and move on to next week.
Right. Everything went off exactly as we expected. But the Giants showed up a little bit more. We thought it could be uglier.
But I feel that's a team that's building. They are building and they're doing things like, and it's incremental and I feel like there is hope. Conversely, I mean there's no hope. There's nothing building in the Jets like organization. So this Giants fans should shut the fuck up, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
This is a quarterback-driven league, and the Giants have a bona fide quarterback who still hasn't even started 16 games yet. Right. During the game, I was texting with a standard New York Giants like every mistake. Oh, fuck the Giants. Fuck this guy. He sucks. And I'm sitting there having a real conversation with this person. I'm telling him, like, look, he is driving them down the field. Yeah, he still makes some mistakes, but it was a terrible offseason. Had no preseason games. He's a second-year quarterback in a new system already. Give him some time. But the Giants take away from that game, the Steelers defense, wow, especially the run defense. I would like to talk about transition here to the Sunday Night Football matchup. We got the New England Patriots playing in Seattle. Now, there's no fans in Seattle, so they won't have that 12th man advantage. But I think this could be one of the better games. It's going to be a tough matchup for the wide receivers of Seattle, which is definitely the strong suit there with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf going up against the great secondary of New England. But I think we're going to have everyone's like, oh, Cam is back. Cam is back. He threw 19 passes, completed 15 of them, had 2 rushing touchdowns against the Miami Dolphins. Okay. But Bill Belichick had a great game plan. He didn't put the game on Cam's shoulders in the sense that, hey, we're going to throw the ball 25, 30 times and you need to win it for us. I think it's going to be a really good matchup. It's Pete Carroll against Bill Belichick. They have a lot of history against each other as far as, similar backgrounds and things like that. It's going to be a really good matchup, but I'm still going to take the Seahawks. I think we're going to see that Cam is going to have to throw the ball to win the game in this one. And I think that's going to be very telling of what the Patriots season is going to look like.
Yeah, I think they may do against the Dolphins. I mean, Cam ran 15 times or something, and that was like the bulk, and scored a couple touchdowns. And that was the bulk of their offense there. And that's what you see with like rookie quarterbacks. That's what you see with quarterbacks on new teams. It's like that's what they can do against a seasoned team. Even though the Seahawks defense is kind of rebuilding, I feel like they'll have a better game plan than maybe the Dolphins did. It's a long trip for New England. I mean, it's not at home. That's a big deal. And then also, Chris Carson was used so well in the passing game against Atlanta for Seattle. So it's not just the wide receivers that New England's going to have to deal with. It's kind of everybody on that team. And Russell Wilson, I can't believe we didn't even talk about him this show, because he and Aaron Rodgers, I think, were the most impressive players this week because they showed okay, there's this big youth movement among quarterbacks, but guess what? Like, we are still the 2 quarterbacks.
Fuck you. We're here.
We've won Super Bowls. We've won multiple MVPs. We're the best. So I was so impressed with both those guys, but Russell Wilson in particular.
We learn more if the Patriots win,
Yes.
And because then we'd then I guess for the like then Belichick really doesn't have
Exactly.
a formula and everything. I expect the Seahawks to win, but I expect the Patriots to be competitive. And if that's the case, then everything is everything, and my prognostication comes to fruition. But it's gonna be a good matchup. I'm really excited for that one.
For sure.
I wouldn't sleep on Cam or the Patriots offense. I feel like perhaps there's going to be. I mean, that was only the week 1 installment, really. I feel like there's going to be plenty of new wrinkles added. It's very difficult to game plan for a Belichick type team, especially with a guy who can have Herculean performances, especially when things fall apart. So I wouldn't sleep on the Patriots. I'm not saying that they're going to come out and go into Seattle, which it doesn't really matter where they're going to anymore. It's like a neutral fucking site. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that's what I view all these games as. So yes, they have history. Yes, they have to go out, travel out west. But I'm not looking at it like he's going into bad Seattle. I think Seattle's defense speaks for itself. Staunch. It's tough as hell. But I'm not thinking that either team is going to be overwhelmed. Either team is going to be shown up by the other one. I think it's going to be a really good matchup, and I think probably defenses will dictate. I mean, Russell Wilson's fantastic, as we know, but I mean, New England's defense doesn't suck. So
definitely not.
So I don't know if anybody has any other points they want to make this week.
I'm good.
All right, gentlemen. Well, it was a very interesting week 1. I'm looking forward to week 2. All the storylines, plenty to discuss, I'm sure, come next Wednesday. Gentlemen, I appreciate you joining me or letting me to join you, I should say. So
you're welcome, Connor.
How sweet.
Thank you so much. Bottom of my heart. All right, Jets looking good. Niners coming up. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.